Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the high-grade Strike Freedom Gundam Revive, one of the most requested reviews on this channel. You guys have been looking for it for quite some time. It's taken me a while to get my hands on it because I did go to order before and then ordered the wrong one by accident, which is this one right here. This is the older variant. The one I'm going to be taking a look at today is the 2016 Revive version. A much nicer kit. Anyway, if you're having trouble getting one of these for yourself, you can get yours exactly where I got mine, and that is through those awesome people over at Buy. Link is down there in the description, and all I can say is this kit has definitely impressed me more than I thought it would. Visually, it is a very nice looking kit, but I will say the build does feel a little bit on the dated side, and that's exactly where we're going to start, so let's wind on back to that. So on busting open this box, which I will mention has an absolutely obscenely nice box art, we're treated to 3 bags of plastic. That is 9 runners of plastic, as well as some polycaps and some beams, which is quite a bit of plastic. And I will mention, I do have this build finished right here in my hand, and even though the build is somewhat old school, there is a lot of building to a lot of the parts, including the side skirts and the backpack, as well as the Gundam itself, and the overall finished kit is very nice. But anyway, about that build. The manual in here is your standard fold-out pamphlet manual. This is post-2016, so it does have all of the information in here translated, which is always nice. When it comes to the plastics in here, we've got 2 runners of pristine white, 2 runners of dark navy blue, 2 runners of blue, and 2 runners of injection gold for the frame and the hands of this kit. Finally, then we do have polycaps in gold, which is unusual to see. SEED definitely has the odder polycaps because with the red frame, we've got red ones, blue frame, blue ones, and this particular kit, it's these gold ones. We do have 2 standard clear pink beams in here and 1 whopper of a sheet of stickers. Now, we'll mention the vast majority of these are for on the backpack as well as the weaponry, so the Gundam itself goes relatively unscathed. So the build in here is most definitely Revive style, aka you throw polycaps into the main moving aspects of the kit and then layer the armor on top. There's no bells, no whistles, just simple and to the point. We've got the good old standard double joints for the knees and the elbows, which look like this on the inside. And like I mentioned, this is a Revive style build, so that means it's joint, armor, joint, armor. There isn't any kind of full inner frame or anything fancy like that. However, once you've got your parts built like this leg right here, you get a lot of payoff. There is a lot of panel lining opportunities on here too, because some of the whites does look a little bit plain, but the molding on here is nice. Up to the waist, we've got a rocking side-to-side waist joint. Then it's the usual front and rear armor moving front skirtings on ball joints, as well as a splash of color around front. Now, what really makes the waist on a Strike Freedom incredibly detailed, even though it's not actually attached onto the waist, it's attached into the lower torso, is the side skirting armors. These are rail cannons with a whole lot going on. We do have a moving mechanism in them, and even though the build is somewhat simple, just side panel and side panel to each piece of this, it works out pretty well. However, this is where I start to notice that this kit does nub quite a bit. The plastics in here, especially the gray, blue, and the dark navy blue, are very prone to nubbing on the surfaces due to the gate placement. The torso builds up with typical polycap shoulder cup joints, perpendicular polycap ball joints for the ab crunch, plenty of nice color separated parts to load up onto it then, and we do have a hard plastic neck, not the old school polycap. Again, the simple Revive build continues, half and half armor parts for the shoulder around a polycap. The red section thankfully is a plastic red part, double joint for the elbow bend, and then the layering on of all of the armor attachment to the hands, upper arm armor attachment to the shoulders is usual Revive standard style build. Now there is one part of this kit that I thought was an absolute nightmare, and that is the wings round back. The main reason for this is made out of one of the most markable plastics out there, which is navy blue. This is hard and marks up a lot. When you actually file it or sand it, you will get a lot of scratch marks too, so there's a lot of cleanup here if you want it to look nice. There's also a ton of massive gates too, and there's a lot of repetitive building because it is 2 wings halved into pretty much identical parts, so you're building pretty much the same thing 4 times, and there is tons and tons of cleanup. A lot of these marks are on the seams, so that will be very unsightly if you don't clean them up correctly. Some of them are thankfully hidden by some aspects like the big old blue dragoons, but again, the backpack here definitely takes a lot more care in the build than the actual Gundam itself, and it's still not fully color accurate. Finally then is the build of the head, and this is quite simplistic, but there is 2 kind of funny aspects to it. First off, the actual plastic for the eye segment is in clear. I guess this is in case you want to do some kind of light piping yourself, maybe paint the eyes, but it's in a clear blue, which is just odd. The eyes are meant to be a yellow. On the other side, we do have eye stickers in here, and a lot of the time, you do see with Strike Freedom, for some reason, the eyes are not reflective. They're just a plain yellow. So it means they won't be catching the light nicely when they are attached in. So two odd aspects to it. When the head is finished, it is one of those ones with a big old seam right down the side of it, but overall, not too bad. As with the final verdict and the final assembly, it's a nice simple kit that attaches together very well. There's a lot of cleanup around back. It isn't fully color accurate in some aspects, but it's 90% of the way there. And in the end, I am more impressed by the finished build than the actual building of it, which is always good. So now with the kit finished, jumping right on into the aesthetics. Now I will mention you can actually balance this so it does stand up, but you kind of have the wings in a little bit of an unflattering kind of way. You can manage to do it, but again, also I will mention the hip joints aren't the strongest either, so I do recommend pretty much getting this on a stand if you're putting it on the shelf, even if it is just standing there. Of course, it looks better in the sky, as you'd expect with a Strike Freedom, but for now I'm going to be going with this, just to kind of keep it from tipping over. So there's the overview of the kit, and this is absolutely fantastic looking. Now, I will mention that this is it right out of the box, nothing done. I haven't even panellined this kit. This is as raw build as you can get. Overall, it is very, very nice. I actually thought the Mighty Strike Freedom would have visually gone head and shoulders above this kit, but that's not necessarily true. I know there is some nicer aspects, some nice golds and details here and there, color separation on the knee thrusters, all of that sort of stuff on the Mighty Strike Freedom, but what we have here is very nice. Again, there are some kind of old school issues with color separation, seam lines, stuff like that, but overall, I am definitely impressed by this kit. The Strike Freedom is one of those kits that tends to always look awesome no matter what kit that is actually made of it. This one right here is very, very particularly nice, I might mention. I've built quite a few of them. The old school high grade, master grade, the perfect grade, but there's just something about this one which is very, very nice. Of course, again, missing some color accuracy issues, like down the thrusters and the legs. Around the back we are missing some reds and stuff, but the main color accuracy issues are on the weapons. The robot itself, the Gundam itself, looking absolutely beautiful. Again, get a little bit of panel lining into all those tiny little details on here and there. There's not a ton of them, only a few, but that will definitely make this kit pop even more. Overall, an absolutely beautiful kit. And speaking of those color accuracy issues, so this right here is the sheet of stickers, and as you can see is an absolute whopper. Mainly the issues are these blues down here. Those are mainly for the weapons. We've got some yellows and reds up top, but I'm going to mention the ones I used first. Number 2 there, that is the eye sticker. Like I mentioned, it's just flat yellow, so there's no reflection to these eyes, which is usual for the Strike Freedom. It just looks a little bit on the odd side. Next up then, we've got this number 3. I haven't used this, but this can be put behind the clear eyes in here in case you want some sort of reflection. Again, they are a pale light blue with no black around them. So, not sure what they're thinking about there. Next up, we do have these ones right here, which is 4, 5, 6, and 7. These are the various lenses. 4 are for on the beam rifles, I'll get to those later. 6 and 7, as well as 5, those are for on the various head cameras, 2 on the front and a large one around back. So when it does come to the color accuracy stickers, the actual robot doesn't get any of these. These ones right here, number 10, these are for up on the wings. We've got these almost coffin-shaped little bits of detail, which should be in this kind of mustardy yellow right here. These aren't obviously out of box, so you can stick them on if you want, or paint up those details. The rest on here, as far as I know, these are all from the beam rifles, which are an absolute tragedy, I have to say, when it does come to color separation. So slapping the kit down besides the art, and as you can see, for the most part, this is pretty much almost 90% color accurate. Again, the only thing that's missing is the color up on the wings, which isn't a mustard, it's actually meant to be a gold. The stickers are just a funky color, and the kind of thrusters on the front of the shins. Those should be grey on the outside, red on the inside, but besides that, everything is pretty much where it needs to be, and overall, beautiful kit. Looking good round back again, the only thing we're really missing is the red on the insides of the thrusters. Besides that, everything else looking great. Bits on the wings missing too, but overall, not bad. So when it does come to the model kit since, there are some issues around this kit here and there, especially on the wings. As you can see, scratching is prevalent as well as various little nub marks and seam lines. Now I did do these quite quickly, so I did nip them and just kind of filed wherever there was kind of leftover little nubs, but this is one of those kits that you really need to take your time sanding. Sand up everything as they are individual parts before putting them together, and if you wanted to, you could cement that seam line closed. You don't really see the seam from most angles, but the little dots and stuff you might just. Again, it's not as bad as it was looking when it was being put together, but you'll definitely see them a lot while building. Again, just like any of the negatives about this kit I've mentioned, the Gundam is actually missing most of the issues. I don't really have any nub marks or nasty looking leftovers even on the darker plastics. As you can see, there's a little bit of a one down here, a nub, but for the most part they're hidden well. The only thing you could really mention negatively, and this really is a kind of a Revive era or old school high grade staple, and that is the big old seam line up the side of the head. Now basically they do this on the side because from the front, you're not really going to see it. So if you do want that gone, again, cement and sand to get rid of that. And I've pushed and pushed a lot, but it doesn't seem to want to close too much more than that. Again though, you don't see it from the front. Anyway, there's the full 360-degree spin, so you can see every aspect of the kit for yourself, in case there's something you want to know about it that I forgot to mention. Again, color separation is great. In the torso, we've got the gold in the cannon in the chest, the vents are in light gray, the red detail around the upper cockpit section. It's all there and it looks fantastic. Same goes for the head, all the colors you want to see, those gray cheeks, the red on the V-fin and the chin, everything is where you want to see it. The gold on this kit may not be as fancy as what we saw in the HG Strike Freedom recently released, but it's still not too bad, it looks okay. Again, you could spray this yourself in a nice gold to really finish off the kit and make it look spectacular, but again, it's not the worst. 90% color accurate, the silhouette and all of the detail and the shapes are all there for you, so all you really need to do is pen line it up, detail up a couple of parts, and you've got a perfect Strike Freedom. So now jumping into the size comparison, and there it is beside your average size Gundam, which is the RX 78-2. The Revive on the left, Real Grade 2.0 on the right. Next up beside its more modern counterpart, the HG Strike Freedom. Again, this is getting a bit of a height boost because it is on a stand for the same back heavy reasons as we see on this kit. Beside the high grade Freedom Gundam, Gundam EX, Gundam G Self, Gundam Aerial, Gundam Barbatos, G-Quax, and finally, Gundam Mark II. Next up, jumping on into those accessories, and here's everything that comes with the high-grade Strike Freedom Gundam Revive. What we get in here is a pair of beam rifles, a pair of beam sabers, as well as the clear effect part for the shield. Besides that, we do have a pair of alternate hands, these ones right here being the holding hands, but the alternate hands in here are the ones that were attached the whole time so far, being the widespread open hands, and we have two of those. So first up, a little bit of a comment on the compatibility here. As for the backpack, this is your usual 2-point backpack adapter, so it means you can throw on your backpack of choice. I'll go grab one at random and see what we got. Alright, so I'm going to go for the aerial rebuild. I don't know why I always go for this, because I always go for it. I guess I most particularly like this backpack. I guess it always just tends to work really well with a lot of kits, especially any ones with a little bit of blue on them. So just popping that on and it holds on absolutely fine. So yeah, fully compatible with most high-grade backpacks as long as they have the adapter. And of course, the absolute same goes both ways, and the Strike Freedom Gundam has such an insanely cool backpack, one of the coolest Gundam backpacks out there, so it's nice to experiment with it on some other Gundams. Next, when it comes to the action-based adapter, it is the standard one right between the legs. This can block the movement of the legs sometimes depending on the action-based stand that you use. It's 3mm, so anything should pop on in here. And of course, the Strike Freedom always looks the best up in the air. So when it comes to the hand options in here, we've got those widespread hands that have been attached onto the kit the whole time. These are quite nice, a simple sculpt, nothing too over the top, but it is nice that they are included because trying to match gold plastic is pretty much impossible when it comes to option sets. Actually, it is impossible. The other options we have in here are the standard holding hands, again, fairly normal. Back comes off so you can stuff stuff into them. That's about it. As for swapping the hands, it's your simple ball joint attachment, so pop one off, pop one on, simple as. So the first equipment in here is the beam sabers. We've got two of these that can be attached into the hands just like so. We are missing a stripe of gray around them, which would be easy to fill in yourself. They can be attached as singles like so, in either or hand, both hands at once, or they can be attached arse to arse like this, Darth Maul style. That is what it looks like in a little bit of a pose, and this poses up nicely. I will note at this point that the backpack does pull the ab crunch backwards as it is out of box, so it's hard to actually crunch the abs forward with the wings pointing back. Just in case I forget to mention it a little bit later on. When these are not in use, you can just pull the beam out of the saber and attach them onto the side skirt rail rifle sections, just like this. Holds on pretty decently too. So next up here is the beam rifles. Now we do have a pair of these. They look pretty much the same at first glance, but there is a mild difference between the two. Of course, the biggest issue with these is the color separation. If I move this off to the side and you see what they're meant to look like, we're missing a whole lot of red as well as blue on these. This is kind of par for the course when it does come to Gundam SEED kits for whatever reason or another. The beam rifles are complex and we never get the full colors. Both of these have little tabs for attaching them onto the unit. One of these has a twisting stock section back here, whereas the other one has this extending one, pops out just like so, for combining them together. So when it comes to the attachment of these beam rifles, you can pop them into the hands like so you can wield them akimbo, or there's the option of combining them. To do so, you just take the rear one and pull out the stock like so. The front one, you flip the stock section around, and then you attach the barrel of the back one into the rear of the front one like so. I will mention, this doesn't attach the greatest, it's not the most locked together combination, and they pop into the hand in the exact same ways if it was held singularly. When the beam rifles are not in use, you just pop them off like so, separate them in half. Again, these don't hold together very well. To attach them onto their mounting points, you just slide the rail guns back out of the way just like so. Then you can attach the beam rifles into the slots where the usual side skirtings go, just like so. This side and this side, exactly the same, and they hold on decently. So last up in here, we've got the clear beam effect for the shield. It is just a simple, very light translucent blue. It catches the light nicely on the facets like so. We've got some energy bits off to the side. They're not that vigorous really. And overall, it's a little bit on the plain side, but not too bad. Definitely could do with a little bit of maybe white highlighting or something like that to give it a little bit more of an energy kind of feel. To get this attached on, it's fairly simply just pop off the red section on the forearm bracers like so, pop that into the back of the effect like this, and then it all attaches onto the forearm bracer like so. It's easy, effective, and does what it needs to do. The effect part is a little bit on the plain side. I will mention it does look more like glass than energy because of the way that it is designed, but it is still a nice feature. A little bit of white paint airbrushed on there would really take it very far, especially around the edges. However, out of box again, glassy and a little bit plain. Finally then, as for the onboard weapons, we have the rail guns on the hips. To use these, you just swing them forward just like so, and the front and the back can swing up like this. That happens on both sides. It's simple, and that is what it looks like. Next up, we do have the Dragoons round back, which to me is one of the most almost missed opportunities on this particular kit. Missed potential, really. If you pop them off, they just look like this, but there is no way to actually display them in any kind of cool sort of way. If you do get your standard kind of action base with a 3mm peg, you can actually slide it in underneath these, and it does fit without actually damaging them or damaging anything. It does hold on, so you could have some of them on various little stems like this. However, compared to something like the Destiny that came with some wings of light, that would have been very nice. The upcoming premium Bandai Spec 2 version does come with something like that, so it is a little bit disappointing. As far as I know, there isn't one to buy separately for this kit that I know of. So lastly now into the articulation, and overall this kit has been doing quite well. The only thing that's kind of loose is the upper hips moving outwards like so, where the polycap is attaching in right there. If this is kind of set down with its wings on, it tends to kind of do that on me a little bit. That could be tightened up fairly simply enough, but otherwise it's fairly solid besides those hips. Anyway, test pose. So throw it into the usual pose now, and overall the articulation in here is about average. Everything moves the way you'd expect a Revive style kit to move. Everything's good, not great, but definitely not bad. It can't get too low down into the lunge because the upper leg eventually starts to clash with some of the upper parts. The ab crunch is a little bit on the kind of funny side the way it bends around, but you still get some nice bend out of it. It could be a little bit stronger. And like I said, overall the articulation is good, but it looks a little bit on the awkward side in this particular pose. It's probably tuned a little bit better towards aerial poses than this one. So moving through everything as usual. So a hard plastic neck, there it is all the way up and down. A little bit on the limited side. The back of the head does clash with this a little bit, so you have to bring it forward and then throw it back like that in order for it to look up. But doesn't look up too much down mainly. There's side to side as well, but mildly limited. The shoulder polycap is aligned to move forward and back, so it can move ever so slightly to the front. When the ball joint shoulder is attached, it can move forward and back like so. So a nice range of motion. We do have a white joint in there, which does look a little bit not so premium. We've got the full 360 spin right here. The arm is attached into the shoulder. There is the arm all the way up and all the way off as well. But there it is all the way up without flipping the shoulder round. Full 360 spin up here. There is the bend at the elbow, so nice. And your standard ball wrist joint. As for the ab crunch, there's forward, back, so it's not too bad. Side to side as well. And it's just a peg in here, probably to stop it flopping back at the backpack too much. So that gives you full rotation all the way around, but these guys don't like it. Front skirting armor is on ball joints. They're very weak, so keep that in mind when you do chop them apart. They'll be a little stronger attached together. Premium butt flap that moves together just like so. These guys can move out of the way and forward. Like we saw, the railguns can pop out too, and they can move up and down out of the way of the legs as well. The hips in here are the type that rock side to side just like so. When it comes to the kicks, there it is all the way up to the front, so very nice. Premium butt flap, so it can move all the way out to the back too, so full range of motion there. When it comes to the splits, full splits as well. Upper leg rotation is from there to there only. Lastly then at the ankle, there's it all the way to the front. all the way to the back, and we do have a toe bend downwards. The side to side I feel is a little bit limited, just lost the leg there, so. But yeah, there's the side to side, a little bit limited. Not too bad up in the air, but on the ground, that will limit your poses. Next up then, we've got the backpack. So the wings here, they can rotate all the way around like so. Of course, the Gundam will get in the way of doing that. There is a side to side flap like so. These can rotate independently to each other, whichever way that you do like. And there is the expansion of these dragoons out like so to get some over the top kind of shapes out of this. All of that is on both sides, of course. And there's an example of them spread out. So not too bad. Just the cleanup that's a bit of a nightmare, but the wings themselves are very, very nice. Can't wait to see what Bandai does in the upcoming Spec 2. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and this right here is the quintessential X Gold Tier kit. This is, well, 3 out of 5 in every aspect. So Gold Tier, Gold Tier, Gold Tier, Gold Tier, and overall an extremely good kit. So yeah, when it comes to the aesthetics on here, just so you know, what it actually says in my notes right here for Gold Tier is 90% color and proportions. I would say this is definitely 90% color, but 100% when it hits the proportions. Overall, this is a beautiful looking kit. Get a little bit of color detailing in there, as well as some pen lines, and you've got yourself a perfect Strike Freedom Gundam. It's not going to be 100% out of box, but with a little bit of extra effort, you're going to get this to look absolutely phenomenal. If you're not a big fan of gold, you can always spray those golds in nice gold, and like I said, you'll have a perfect 1/44th scale strike with minimal effort. It's very, very nice. When it comes to articulation in here, again, looking at my notes, it's like bronze tier statue, silver tier okay posing, gold tier good posing, and that's exactly what this is. It doesn't hit the great posing mark, it is a good poser, and you'll get pretty much all the poses you want from a Strike Freedom Gundam. It doesn't perform that well on the ground, the legs can look awkward at times, but you will get the vast majority of poses. Did find it hard to get it looking dynamic, holding on to the rifle when it is in its combined mode, but overall it's nice, and the wings make up for anything that the body can let you down on. Well, except the actual wings itself. The ab crunch sometimes fails with holding up the wings if they're pointing all the way back. But anyway, when it comes to the accessories in here, once again, this is Gold Tier, and what that means is great loadout with nice quality, and that is definitely it across the board. The only super letdown here is the lack of color on the beam rifles. They look okay, there are stickers in here so you can actually add those on, but the loadout is fairly decent, and getting a widespread pair of hands inside of the box as well is always a big bonus. Again, fairly good, not fantastic. Lastly then, when it does come to the build, again, Gold Tier 3 out of 5. It's a standard Revive build. There is a lot of cleaning up to do on the wings if you want your wings to be super clean, which will take a little bit of time. But overall, everything builds up simply, there's no issues. The cleanup everywhere else besides that color is quite good, and overall it's an average Revive era build, no more, no less. So yeah, that right there is it for the review. It's still a great kit in 2025 without a single doubt, so if you're looking for a Strike Freedom Gundam, this might be the one to go for. If you want a really crazy Strike Freedom Gundam, you may want to be waiting for the Spec 2, which will be Premium Bandai based on the Mighty Strike Freedom, or you could get the Mighty Strike Freedom, but this one right here, this is the classic, so if you're looking for a classic version, in 1/44th scale, this might be the one to go for. Real grade can be a bit sketch. This one, pretty much perfect out of box, just needing a little bit of detailing up. Anyway, I got mine through Buy, link in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more Gunpla reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, this video right here and every single video I make would not be possible without each and every one of you guys who watches this video, and special thanks at the end of this video right here to those who support on the channel memberships as well as over on Patreon, including Caleb Engelhart, Joe, OG59061, Scotty Thomas, and Simon.